internal linking for SEO, or how to optimize your website internal links in order to improve your pages crawlability, your key pages popularity, and make them easier to rank too. These are the top topics that we are going to talk about in today's learningseo.io Q&A accelerated session with Mike Ginley, who is a very experienced independent SEO consultant who's joining us today to go through this particular topic. So thank you very much for joining today, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to get into this.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. To introduce a little bit the topic before starting the Q&A, I want to say that potentially optimizing internal links is one of those areas that are undervalued and overlooked in many cases. We see that there's a whole area in SEO to build links, link building, and there's a lot of efforts and resources put on building new links. But then many times, many of these websites have a very poor internal linking, right? The homepage is only linking to some very few top categories. These top categories are internal linking to their children's subcategories, but they are not cross-linking between them. And then many of these children's subcategories only link to certain products, and the products, they don't link to other related products either. So internal links are not only like potentially the lowest hanging fruit to improve your page's crawlability, but also to pass value to in-depth pages that you really want to rank better, that you really want to send popularity to perform well. And also, we shouldn't only think about internal linking in terms of crawlability and passing link popularity, but also in terms of browsability and UX of these pages too. If you have a very popular page that you want to endorse for your users to see and buy from, these are pages that you really should try to highlight as much as possible from your main navigation, from your footer, from key editorial areas of your content, right? So we know the general best practices, like link to your internal pages in a hierarchical way, semantically relevant way, right? Also grouping between topics, related pages linked together, not only vertically, but horizontally too. And then also about using text-based links as much as possible, anchor texts that are descriptive of the pages that you are linking to. At the end of the day, if we think about it, all this is very on hand with user experience. You want to really describe and make sure to tell the user what the page that they are about to click are about, right? So I want to start by asking, what are those key criteria that you tend to follow or take into account whenever you start a new SEO project to ensure that you don't leave anything out, that you take the proper steps to ensure that you link well to all meant to be link pages?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a few processes that I can walk everyone through. As you mentioned, how important that anchor text is. Like the main tip I always give people is when coming up with an internal link, you just finished writing your article, you're looking for the internal link opportunities, is to imagine the anchor text like alt text. Imagine that someone that might be visually impaired using a screen reader, it's the same thing for a search engine crawler. They don't know the next page they're going to. They can't see that. So you need to imagine that anchor text, like I said, as the alt text. You should be able to know exactly where you're going just by reading that text before you click on it. You're not going to know, click here, learn more. You're not knowing the next page you're going to. But an article I just wrote, the anchor text that I called out as the perfect example, was the Screaming Frog custom extraction guide. That was the exact anchor text. It went to that exact page with that exact headline. There's no doubt that someone or a crawler would know exactly where they're going to land when they click on that link. So that's the biggest piece of advice I could give when coming up with anchor text. Obviously, you want it to be relevant keywords. That's very helpful when trying to get certain keyword rankings. But you also don't want to force it. It needs to be natural, especially with how the search engines and large language models, AI, all these search generative things are becoming. They want the more conversational aspects of content. So you need to make it natural. You can't just be forcing in, repair your furnace. If you're an HVAC company, you can't just throw it in just to get a good anchor text or an internal link. It needs to be natural.
For me, it needs to be a little bit like, again, I say a lot of common sense. So unfortunately, many people, we don't understand common sense as the same thing.
Yeah.
But yes, if it sounds too repetitive, too spammy, non-natural, saying the exact same thing is too obvious. Why are you displaying an example? Hotel vacations in Sydney,
Yep.
hotel vacations in London, hotel vacations. Like, do you need to repeat every single time in 10 links again and
Yep.
again and again? No, the user will already know, right? So you need to be natural. Try to be descriptive, but naturally in the way that you link to these pages without sounding or looking spammy. Another thing, so you take a look at the anchor text, which is great. I also ensure the way that the link is implemented. Many times, I'm afraid, even if the website we see that it has a huge navigation, a big navigation, all the categories, all the subcategories, amazing. It seems that they are linking it all, like what is important from the main navigation. So every single page is linking to the top categories and top major subcategories from there. But then you disable JavaScript from the browser and you see that none of these were actually linked in the raw HTML, only in the render one, because they were over relying on client-side render JavaScript, which I mean, supposedly should be fine by Google to render at this point. But then you see that the second level navigation is requiring an on-click event. So even if Google is able to render the JavaScript of the first level of the navigation, because they cannot execute an on-click as the user, they are not able to see the second level navigation. So it's important to check and validate well also up to which point navigation relies on JavaScript, and if all of the links that you visually see are actually there in the code, render and the raw one, and how they differ, because many times they differ too. So it's fundamental to make sure that is the case. Also to link to the final URL, because many times we see that the links are going to attack URLs using parameters just to track internal clicks somehow like this. This is not the way to track clicks. You need to link to the final meant to be index URL, not to canonicalize URLs, redirected URLs. There are only a few pages, even in a small website. Yes, but even if there are only 50 pages, if Google needs to do dual work every single time, sorting out, going through redirects, for example, to get to the final URL destination, you're not passing direct value. What else do you check and you tend to go through, Mike?
Yeah, so can I share the screen? Because I could go through a couple examples. What's one of the biggest issues with internal linking? Obviously, we need to hit the basics before anything, ahref link, good anchor text leads to the final URL. But something that's becoming so popular lately with kind of the devs leading the charge and business analysts leading the charge to get into JavaScript frameworks, whether it's a single page application, Angular, React. Apparently, from what I hear from developers, it's so much faster to get things released and put out in the world. But you spend just as much time fixing a lot of the issues for SEO, crawlability, and all of that stuff. So I have just a junk page here that does, on click stuff. So, dumb things like that. Mike Inley's bad at SEO, stuff like that. But what I have down here is an HTML link, and you can see in the bottom left, I know it's really small, you see that it links directly to my homepage. But then an on-click link, you don't see where that's going. It's just the JavaScript void. So right now, and just hold for this one, it's going to redirect because it was a broken 404. But when I disable JavaScript, like it was just mentioned, again, this link will still work. I'm going to go to the homepage. Now with JavaScript disabled, this doesn't do anything. Nothing's loading. So Google cannot crawl past this in their first wave of crawling. The two waves of crawling is just the HTML and CSS. Then a secondary crawler comes back to render JavaScript as resources are allowed. So for both, linking to the final URL, JavaScript, pretty much everything, Google is not in business to help us out. They are not going to be spending extra resources to find our stuff. So never, bank on Google figuring it out, or, it'll work out in the long run, or Google's crawlers getting better. We are in business to help them out. We need to link to the final URL, avoid unnecessary JavaScript or key elements like the meta information, page title, description, internal links, navigation, priority content. So another thing that I want to show you with this on-click link, one of the best ways to test internal linking, hopefully you all have access to Screaming Frog. You can get a free trial up to about 500 URLs, I still believe it is. But with it, you are able to change the user agent, and you can do Googlebot smartphone, you can do Bing. They're adding new user agents all the time. But what I did was crawl that, dummy page that I had the onClick versus HTML link. And then you can go down and see all the outlinks. And what you see here, when I just filter for the anchor text contains link, remember we had HTML link and onClick link. And I have JavaScript enabled for this crawl. That onClick link is nowhere to be found in here. So again, just shows that even with JavaScript rendering, Google is not able to see that link. So we really, really, really need to avoid using onClick links wherever possible. Again, I know it's getting very, very popular with the new wave of development, but so much time will be spent after the fact to kind of repair these links to get them into Ahref because Google just cannot crawl them. I've been part of projects where traffic just dropped off a cliff because Google could not crawl relevant URLs or content because of that. So big issue here in not using Ahref to discover this stuff. Another one that Alita brought up was crawl errors, linking to the final URL. So again, with Screaming Frog, I mean, this tool is limitless. One of the things that I love to use it for is crawl errors. And I got a lot of 404s. Oh, that's all Twitter. We're going to ignore those. But this is so helpful. And I have a process that I could show you guys. I saw one of the questions was if we have a lot of crawl errors, internal redirects, 404s, any sort of thing that's not a 200 status code, self-canonicalized URL, basically what we want to serve up to Google. I'm crazy about these. I love fixing these issues. It's so boring and tedious. It's not a sexy fix, but it's so impactful because, again, we are helping Google discover all of our quality stuff. We are not banking on them following redirects. They'll give up after a while if we're serving them too many redirects, loops, chains, anything like that. So what I like to do is go into here and you can sort by the number of in links and start to see, okay, there's 74, 400s. Again, this is Twitter, so ignore it because that's false. But you can start to see, okay, maybe this is a navigational element that we are linking to, or it's in the footer. Fix that. 74. Technically, I still call them broken links, even if they are 301s, because I like to be dramatic with it. But there you just cleaned up 74 possibly broken internal links, improved Google's ability to crawl your site, improved the discoverability of your content. They do not need to be doing extra work to find your stuff.
So you check if you're actually linking all of the top pages meant to be linked. Mm-hmm. How do you ensure that you don't leave anything meaningful out? How do you ensure what to link from the main navigation or not, and from which pages?
Yeah, so ideally you're working closely with a subject matter expert in the material that you're working on. You want to find those pillar pages. So what are your top priority services? What are your top priority products? You want to make sure that those are a click away from wherever you are on the website. And then you kind of just go down the ladder from there and figuring out what are the subtopics, subcategories of these, pillar pages, these primary services and products. And anything important you want to make sure is a click or two away from wherever someone could be on the site. So that's where you really want to start off when you're working with the navigation, and then you work your way from there to get, a little bit more focused into certain things. So one of the clients I just worked on was an electrician company where he focused on residential. So that was the primary category in the navigation. Then we got more specific into EV chargers for garages for, Teslas and the new electronic cars. So that was a subcategory of the residential. You really just want to take time to break down the different categories and topics you have on the website. So that's the first way, is talking with your subject matter expert. But then you can also look into SEMrush, Google Search Console, in terms of top queries and top keywords that you're seeing. Are these important to your services and products? Are they linked in the navigation with proper anchor text that is relevant to how people are searching and discovering your website? You want to be able to speak their language as well.
Amazing. What are the top mistakes that you see people doing with their internal links?
Definitely either too little or too much. As we kind of talked at the top of the call, some pages just have zero internal links, so they're not going to any other website. They're kind of just a dead end, or too many so that it comes off kind of spammy. It's hard to kind of read an article if there's too many things that are lit up, too many underlines. It's hard to get through all this content if there's a lot of just different bells and whistles going on, distracting you from the main point. And then I also saw one for the orphan pages as well, not linking to your pages. Again, Screaming Frog is very good at showing that if you're not linking to your page, Google can't discover it, then people can't discover it then. So like if you can't discover it, that you could have the secret to life written on that page and it's not going to be found.
Perfect. Yes, I think that one of the main things that I have identified, typical mistake, is the main navigation that links to top categories link to subcategories. Many times seasonal products or seasonal offering are not as well linked from the homepage, and it's some parent category and that's it. No, if new season is coming, take a look at, and a lot of e-commerce websites do this actually really well. From their top navigation, they have top season offers or trending products or trending offerings, and they will link from the top navigation during a certain time. This meant to rank pages that they really want to push in the following days or weeks, right? So you need to be, let's say, flexible, smart, strategical in the way that you link to your pages. They don't need to be static, your link. Think about it like where I want to refer my users. Well, you need to link accordingly to. Also, very low-hanging fruit that I see that is not leveraged enough, breadcrumbs. Yes. A lot of very in-depth websites could pass much more value. Many times, like e-commerce website or marketplaces tend to get a lot of backlinks to pages that are very in-depth, that are product pages, a very trending product that everybody share and link to. And this product has very few cross links going to only other product pages, and only the link to the top category and the homepage, and that's it. No, that is why Chromes will tend to help to pass value to the next indexable facet, and from the facet also to the top category and so on. So breadcrumbs tend to help a lot on that, and good cross-linking also, I will say, is highly recommended, right? There was another question, I have to say, the other day made by someone in SEO Forward chat forum, right, regarding our HTML sitemaps, not XML sitemap, but are HTML sitemaps actually helpful at this point at all? And it was yes, if you have challenges with your internal linking and navigation. So if you do have a lot of restrictions on following all of these best practices with your main navigation or editorial links, then a good way to, let's say, complement or support your navigation is with an HTML sitemap page, from where you can link to all of the different categories, areas of your site much more easily many times, right? No ideal, it's not the ideal way to rely on navigation, but if you do have some restrictions with your internal links, I will say that this is a good way to move forward.
Yeah, personally, I love a good HTML sitemap. Like I was saying earlier, we're in the business of helping Google out. So if you have any concern, I like to eliminate all doubt with all areas of SEO. If you have any concern about the discoverability of your pages, an HTML sitemap is just a perfect, easy, simple way to eliminate that doubt, because there's an HTML link that Google will find that page. But don't just set it and forget and be like, cool, we got an internal link to it. There's still a lot more work that can be done with that.
So regarding tools, right, you already show quite a few tools that you use to analyze internal linking, SEO crawlers, of course. These are great. I love also how, for example, whether Screaming Frog or SiteBulb or Octopus or many other crawlers, right, they will allow you to integrate with the Google Search Console and your analytics data. I highly recommend you to do that. So whenever you crawl the pages, you identify which are those pages that have very few internal links, but are attracting a lot of traffic, or are not yet attracting a lot of traffic or a lot of clicks, but are mapped and meant to rank for very important queries and with high impressions. And maybe many times you're in position 10 and you see the high impressions that this page is getting, but not so many clicks. And you notice that it has two internal links. And many times these pages may also have a lot of backlinks. So you have already much better performance because of this popularity. And it's because you're not internal linking to this page. So many times it's not even the extreme of orphan pages, no links at all. It has a few links, but too little. There are also newer tools. I would like to hear your opinion also, Mike, on tools like Link Whisper for WordPress, or in links also. In links do many other things too, like structured data generation and content, but also internal linking based on the relevance of the pages. What is your take on this automated linking tools, and how do you ensure that they provide value without linking to everything, without a way that actually makes sense?
So for every, AI tool, LLM, whatever it may be, I'm in full support of using them, but as a tool, not as a replacement. You should still have human interaction with every output that you get from it. You shouldn't just blindly publish or accept their findings. So I have seen a lot of people actually use ChatGPT. They will copy the text from whatever page or whatever they're about to publish, and also give it a list of keywords that it's like, these are my priority terms. Are there any internal links for this in here? Or is this word mentioned or something similar to this mention? And it will source that for you and be like, hey, yes, this keyword's here. You have an internal link opportunity right there. I know Rank Math, a WordPress plugin, will also discover priority keywords for you in your content as you're writing it. It can be super helpful, but again, use your brain, make sure that it's not just saying, oh, this keyword is mentioned, link it to this page, but the context around that keyword might be completely unrelated. And then it just kind of comes off again as spammy, not as helpful to the user. There's so many tools out there, like pretty much every SEO tool, I think now out there has some sort of functionality to help you find and source internal links. But as always, with any of these AI tools, definitely, give it a gut check, make sure that it's not just doing work blindly.
At the end of the day, as you mentioned, we should focus on thinking if this actually solves anything, right? Many times we overdo. It's a manageable, still small website, and we have development resources, or we are working with templates or with a CMS that has even many times like natively supported features that allows you to cross-link, to develop a really good layer navigation between areas and sections. So these tools might not necessary, right? So it's about evaluating if they are actually solving a problem that you do, rather than adding something automated just because it's sophisticated and it's minimal work for you. But at the end of the day, this is something that I would like to have control of as much as possible. There is this other question about internal links on headings. Again, if you ask me, I would say common sense here. If you are on the homepage or in a main section, maybe that is the best way to incorporate links, because from my user standpoint, more than thinking on the butt, right? But I would love to hear your thoughts and criteria that you will tend to use to, in a balanced way, talk and coordinate with the UX team, the design team, to include the links in areas that is more reasonable and better, and to have a little bit of like a win-win in sort of UX and also internal linking optimization.
Yep. So yeah, I agree with you that homepage and priority pages, it's likely that you would have there. It depends on the UX. You might also have a button below whatever, a subsection of the homepage would be, so you don't need to link the heading. In an article or, a landing page or product detail page, unlikely. I'm also just curious about what the styling would look like, because you'd have conflicting kind of styles between your headers and your links. It might get glazed over by the readers. But I just don't see any true SEO value. It's not like Google's going to see, oh, this H2, H3 also has a link. This must be super duper important. Let's focus on that. But like you said, common sense, if you think this will help the user in the long run, absolutely go for it. But hopefully you will find in-text contextual internal linking opportunities related to that subheading that would just be much more natural and user-friendly.
Amazing. So what would you say are the criteria that you tend to use often or more commonly whenever you find on a website that there's millions of internal links that are being redirected to other URLs, or internal links that are completely broken, right?
Yeah.
Because we know that they are not good, especially if they're going to 404 pages, 410 pages, not only bad for internal linking from an SEO standpoint, but bad for UX. I will say to prioritize this before the internal linked redirected pages, of course. But the problem comes when you have this at scale, right? What is your prioritizer? How do you move forward with this?
So that goes back to using Screaming Frog or whatever tool you can use to crawl and source all these either 404s, 301s. export them all. Hopefully you have the anchor text as well, create a pivot table based on the number of in links. So this is really just a simple process to source who are the main offenders. If you're dealing with tens of thousands, which I've dealt with in the past, just hoping that they are navigation ones so that you can really chip away at that number and get that down quickly. But then as you start to see that some of these might just be in-text ones, you really need to start also bringing in some different data sources, like maybe Google Search Console or analytics data, to see what pages are actually bringing in the most people that have broken or offending links, and then start working down from there. It's not fun, it's not quick, but it will be impactful in the long run for both organic visibility and user friendliness.
That's great. And then on the other hand, by the way, what I tend to do is to, okay, well, let's prioritize the pages based on how critical they are for the business. Are they part of the key path to purchase? Is this only hurting SEO, but also UX and conversions, right? How meant to be visited should be these pages, to start there with the main categories, main product pages, etc., right? So we need to prioritize accordingly, because at the end of the day, our optimization work should focus on that and achieving the conversion goals, marketing goals, revenue goals, very likely. So prioritize accordingly. Unfortunately, they will tend to be like, the bigger the website, these issues will tend to happen from time to time. And what we need then is to set rules to avoid having to tackle this again and again, to run into bugs, setting rules right from the start. So, there are 1 million internal links broken. Okay, let's start not only fixing them, but setting rules to avoid more to be generated in the future. How? For example, if you are working on an e-commerce website or in a marketplace or in a publication, every time that a story or a product or a facet is removed or deleted because it's not available anymore on the inventory for some reason, 301 redirects to the new version or the indexable parent category. So values pass there's a good referral to the user to a place that it actually makes sense and is relevant and worthy to be referred to, etc., etc. So it's not only about fixing what is already bad, but also avoiding it from happening again, because we need to be smart about it. We cannot be tackling issue by issue every single time, right? Then another question here regarding what is your criteria to decide on how many links to place? Like, what is too little? What is too many? I see a few questions regarding like being afraid to link too much from the main navigation because you don't want to be seen as spammy, or that you're not, like, your footer becomes all of a sudden like a link farm. Right? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't look natural. Like, what is the criteria that you use here?
So to me, this is the same as, the argument with word count, how many words for an article, there is no number. It's whatever solves the user's problem. I mean, look at large companies like Target, Walmart, Best Buy. They have huge navigations, huge footers. It takes a lot of work with UX. You need to make sure that it's easily usable, discoverable, obviously common sense, best practices. You need to be able to look and be able to use, some kind of subheader functionality. And I'm not talking like H2s in the navigation or H3, but some sort of hierarchical information to break down these categories if you are going to have a large navigation. So, sorry, long-winded answer to this. There is no criteria. It's whatever is the best practice that is going to solve the user's problem. If you have a long-form article, it's going to have a lot of links. If you have a short snippet for like an FAQ, might have one or two. It's just really, kind of passing the eye test. Is there too many links in here? You'll know it when you see it. Are there too few links in here? You'll know it when you see it.
100%. Regarding auditing internal links, how often do you do it? How often would you recommend people to do it? Now we have also even real-time SEO crawlers that will literally be monitoring to alert you whenever something changes, right? But unfortunately, these are not, let's say, available for everybody to buy necessarily. So how often will you schedule a crawl to identify, and also not only schedule, because you can have recurrent daily schedules, but how often is it actually worth it to focus and analyze and go through them?
I'm weird, so I do it a lot. I really like that Screaming Frog response code chart to be as green as possible as always, so I'm always keeping track. There is also a automated crawler and upload from Screaming Frog that will connect to a Data Studio template that you can just completely automate, and it will tell you over time if crawlers are going up and down. Just Google that if you guys are curious to set it up. But yeah, I like to check depending on the size of the site. If it's smaller and it's an easy crawl, you could do it weekly to monthly. If it's in a larger e-commerce site, I like to break it up into the sections of the site and like to do it weekly again, just to make sure that nothing's breaking, nothing weird is happening. Because the longer you let that linger, the easier it is for those crawlers to add up. And then we get into that question from a couple ones ago: how do I deal with millions of broken links? If you kind of forget it for too long, these things can really add up and become insurmountable versus frequent checks to get anything before it becomes too big of a problem.
Perfect. Excellent. And what would you say is the best way to identify orphan pages and fix them in a way that is actually cost effective? How do you move forward with orphan pages? For example, one of the ways that I prefer that is aligned with what you showed before is
Mhm.
to connect with Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and see which are the ones that are getting traffic and clicks. And
Yep.
also to integrate with SEMrush or Ahrefs data or Moz data and see which are getting backlinks externally, but they are many times internally. Very old URLs that existed many times a long time ago, and they were not internal link at some point. So these are very like good data sources, let's say, to identify opportunities. It would be great to hear what you use, how do you move forward with them?
So yeah, all the SEO tools should have that functionality to source the orphan URLs, connect as many different data sources as you can, like you mentioned, Google Analytics, Google Search Console, because they will also be holding on to old URLs that you might have just unlinked but didn't unpublish. So it will source those things. Screaming Frog is personally my favorite. You can connect to those data sources, but you can also ensure that it's crawling your sitemap as well. And it literally has a section under the XML sitemap called orphan URLs. You'll be able to see all of them in one place. And then you can determine, was it supposed to be unpublished and redirected? Should this be linked and we're just missing it? And then you move forward from there. Also with Screaming Frog, if for some reason you are able to go through a bunch of, backlinked URLs in the index, you can do a list crawl and see, are these things linking to each other or are there no links? You can just have a massive list of all your URLs that you can get your hand on and check what the inlink between them are.
Amazing, amazing, perfect. Regarding reporting
Mhm.
and monitoring and reporting, what are the, let's say, tools and resources that you will recommend to use? Also to share with the technical team to fix, or to decision makers to show the value? What are the resources that you tend to find useful?
So I always have been defaulting to Screaming Frog so much. That tool really does it all. They have so many charts that you can use, and like I said, they also have that automated upload that you can do in Google Looker Studio, so that you can change the charts as well. Again, very good for stakeholders, because if they are not as technical or is not as in tune to the value of SEO and what we're talking about, those charts might be able to speak their language a little bit more. Um, Deep Crawl, now Lumar, is another great one that has some very, very good functionality and charts that are easy to export and give to developers, stakeholders, or whoever to show what needs to be fixed, but also the progress that can come from it. Just reporting on wins. If you saw month over month traffic improve, you can report, okay, the inlinks from, this page went from, 2, like you mentioned earlier, to now 10. We had so many other pages that we were not linking to this page from, and we can see the win that we got it from right now because of this.
Amazing, amazing. So this is really a good tip. At the end of the day, should be to be empathic and understand with developers, like what is the way or the type of resources that they already use to facilitate it a lot. So a lot of my clients with projects, with the way to communicate with developers is through Jira, for example. So sharing Google Sheets with them, showing literally not only like, or say like, oh, we have found broken links here. Here are the scenarios, different scenarios of the different pages, screenshots, so they can see the different areas and descriptions, but also like attaching the actual data of the crawl of where are the links coming from, where they are going to, and prioritizing and segmenting the list, not sending a single list with millions of URLs, like how they should forward. We should be prioritized. We should be doing that type of work of prioritization. Facilitating understanding is fundamental, right? With decision makers, it should be not necessarily explaining how they are implementing technically, because they won't handle that. But what do you want from them? Oh, you want support, revenue, like money wise, right? Like investment wise, resources wise. And that is why you are sharing this with them. So show the value, the impact. How much money are you leaving on the table for not fixing those internal links? How much traffic are these pages meant to bring? If they will be ranking better, right? In terms of that, I believe that is fundamental, right?
For all issues, the way you structure those tickets for both stakeholders and developers, how you report it, that impact, like you just mentioned, the why, what is this going to get us, can be so helpful in the long run, because they need to be able to understand, why does this matter? Why do we need to add these internal links? Why do they need to be Ahrefs instead of on-click? Because that can also stop issues in the future if they aren't corrected at the source.
That is great. That is great to hear. Amazing. So what would you say is your last tip to share in today's session? We are almost reaching the hour, and I want to leave you like with something that you haven't mentioned yet that you think it would be worth it to cover.
So I think a lot of this starts at the source. Like I said, nothing in SEO should ever be set and forget it. One of the biggest things you can do is go back and update your content to be relevant again to today's problems, whatever your users are searching. You can add the internal links in as well. But from the source, when you are creating content, whether it's you or a content writer, you should have a goal you are trying to solve for. Anything you're writing about should connect to your services or products. And if you are creating a content template, have the internal links there ready to go, top of mind as you are creating this content. So you aren't writing and then going back, what internal link should I include? It should be part of the content template process when you're coming up with the ideas, call to action, all that stuff. So much easier to add internal links when they are top of mind with the goal you have in mind for creating content.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Mike, for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope
thank you guys.
have all learned from my tips and insights and examples. It has been great. Hopefully this will clarify most of the doubts when internal linking and optimizing internal links in general, tackling these projects that many times because of the scale can become a lot of work. I really appreciate it. And if you like today's session, remember to like the video and to subscribe to the channel. Until the next one. Bye-bye.